So now officially, thank you very much all for joining us today in your morning, in your afternoon, whatever time it is in your part of the world. We are very grateful to invite you to our webinar, Transnational Indigenous Conservation in the Ecuador-Colombia Amazon Basin. My name is Frank Weisenberger. I'm coordinating the Community of Practice Conservation Standard projects on Indigenous land and waters. And I'm today joined with three of my wonderful colleagues from Latin America. Valentina, can you click forward, please? So for the first few minutes, you're going to hear from me, and then I'll hand over to Valentina, Carolina, and Gabi, who already introduced themselves briefly. Valentina will kick us off today, giving a quick overview on the cultural and biological importance of the Andean Amazon. And then we will hand over to Caro, who will provide us with a case study on her work in Colombia, followed by Gabi providing an overview of her work in Ecuador and how those two projects link together. Valentina will round the webinar up and look at how we can scale the effort in that region of the world. And then we're going to end the webinar with some questions. Our preference would be if you have any questions throughout the webinar to hold them and maybe post them in the chat. I will collate all the questions over the duration of the webinar, and then we have them all ready to put forward at the end when Carolina and Gabi have finished with their presentations. That's a little bit the plan for today. And I just want to say a few words about the community of practice for those of you who don't know us. So we are here to help Indigenous people and local communities use and adapt the conservation standards, because we strongly believe that this will foster an increased community conservation initiatives. As such, our mission is, Valentina? Our mission is we want to catalyze how Indigenous people plan, and we want to support them with coaching, knowledge sharing opportunities, and innovative tools. And we want to encourage that people use the conservation standards and adaptations of conservation standards for better environmental, cultural, and social outcomes amongst IPLC communities. And as such, we are a volunteer-powered network, and so we only do baby steps. We have developed, and that's how our connection with Carolina and Gabi happened. In the last 2 years, we developed 2 case studies on her projects. We will send through a link to those case studies in the chat in a second. Aside from case studies, we have our own homepage. The link on the homepage is there too. I will send through that as a link in a second as well in the chat. On our homepage, you can find those 2 case studies and heaps of other resources that we developed over the years, tools, presentation, case studies from other parts of the world. We are having as well an interactive map where projects can present themselves and introduce themselves in case they want to reach out and connect with others. We are running an email listserv, so you can sign up if you send us an email, and you will receive continuously updates on what's happening in our community of practice. And that is a peer-to-peer listserv, so everyone can post news and share information. We have also a LinkedIn channel and a YouTube channel, and you can find a copy of this presentation later on YouTube, and we will send an email to our listserv letting everyone know about that. That's really what the community of practice is doing. We're trying to create a platform. I mentioned to you beforehand, the community of practice is not only me, and it's not only me and Valentina. We have a wonderful group of people together from all regions of the world. We are trying to be representative to, I guess, better help Indigenous people and local communities in the different regions. But today is all about Valentina. At another time. Thank you. Valentina, as she introduced herself, is from Colombia and is our stalwart for the region for Latin America and has been helping us connect with the conservation community there. And Valentina took it on to herself to work with Carolina and Gabi to come up with this wonderful webinar, which is in the same region as Valentina lives. And with that, I would like to hand over to Valentina to take us onto a journey to Ecuador and Colombia. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Frank. And hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, where we're going to explore the pivotal role of indigenous communities in the conservation Amazon freshwaters ecosystem on two key basins from Ecuador and Colombia. Our focus today is on how indigenous communities are not just inhabitants of these regions, but step forward of some of the most biodiversity and culturally significant areas on the planet. So there is some territories, areas located in these iconic areas and they are the foundation of the culture, livelihoods, and ancestral practices that our guests can tell us more. Also, I would like to present to Carolina Polania from Colombia, TNC Colombia. We have been working together. And also, I would like to introduce Gabriela from TNC Ecuador. And they're going to share all the experiences and tremendous efforts that they put on these programs. And all the experience is priceless for us. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation here to the webinar. And I would like to highlight all the importance of community-led conservation that they are being part on these two countries and these two key basins. So why these two key basins are so important, and it's because the cultural and biological importance. So the cultural and biological importance of the Andean Amazon that we are located on. So why it's so important? It's because I would like to extend also the 5 sub-watersheds, like basins in the Amazon Andean, that is Caquetá, Putumayo, Napo, Marañón, Aucayili, but we are going to focus to Napo, that is from Ecuador, and Caquetá, that is from Colombia, that we have been working on it. So Nature Conservancy has been supporting different programs and efforts to achieve the impact on the basin scale. And they have the experiences of using an adaptation, different kind of conservation standards to local community context. And they choose these geographic areas for many reasons, but the 3 key important reasons were because of their importance of freshwater biodiversity, also because of the percentage of indigenous lands. For example, from Napo, from Ecuador, there is 73% and of indigenous lands, and in Caquetá, 45%. Also, the third reason is because their strong presence on the territories. And through all the paths that they were on the territories, they built some different strategic relationships with stakeholders, with indigenous communities, with local environmental organizations, with NGOs and academic partnership, and they established there to work with the indigenous communities as the way that they have been working on it. So with this introduction, I would like to pass the word to Carolina to tell us more about the case studies from Colombia, and then Gabriela will tell us a little bit more about the case study from Ecuador.
Thank you, Valen. Okay, thank you, Frank, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to share the work that we have been doing in Colombia and in Ecuador as part of the Nature Conservancy. In TNC, not only in Colombia, but around the world, we work closely with indigenous people and local communities to explore strategies of community-based conservation. Each day is more community-led conservation. Our goal is to achieve a systemic, collaborative, and sustainable transformation that not only protects the rights of the indigenous people and local communities, but also strengthens their voice, choice, and agency in managing their territories, biodiversity, and ecosystems that sustain their livelihoods. This approach is rooted in a deep respect for traditional knowledge and practices, recognizing communities as fundamental partners in conservation rather than only beneficiaries. By collaborating with them, we aim to build resilient ecosystems and strengthen local governance structures that ensure the long-term sustainability of these efforts. Valen, please. Okay, we're going to talk a little about the Caquetá Basin. This basin is an incredible example of the rich biodiversity and community stewardship in the Amazon, spanning more than 83% in Colombia and approximately 17% in Brazil. It is characterized by extensive freshwater ecosystems with high aquatic biodiversity and actively managed by local communities and indigenous people. As Valen said, more than 45% is under indigenous people managed. However, this region also faces a significant challenge. The ecosystems and the communities that depend of them are at risk. If sustainable alternatives that balance economic, social, and environmental needs are not implemented, the risks and the problems are increasing every day. Indigenous territories cover more than 45%, as I said, and approximately the 35% of the area is under another category of protection, including National Natural Park, such as Alto Fragua, Indiguasi, Picachos, and Serranía de Chiribiquete parks. Despite these protections, 45 by indigenous and more than 35 by national park, the region remains vulnerable to deforestation, unsustainable resource extraction, illicit crops, and other threats. It is crucial that we continue to support and strengthen the community's capacity to manage and protect these lands under the traditional way, but in an effective way. Let's talk a little about Solano. Solano municipality is our work area inside Caquetá Basin. Solano is the second largest municipality in Colombia, reflects both the challenges and the opportunities in the Caquetá Basin. It has the largest indigenous population in the department, and a significant amount of land is managed by indigenous communities and national park, specifically Serranía de Chiribiquete National Park. However, Solano has one of the highest deforestation rates in the recent years. These highlight the urgent need for effective conservation strategies to address the drivers of deforestation while providing sustainable livelihood options for local communities and for indigenous people, because it's important to mention that in this area, rural community or peasant community are present and interact with indigenous communities and with other stakeholders in the territories. In Solano, we work with 4 indigenous organizations and 18 communities with whom at different times we have articulated the use of the different methodologies of work, among which are the conservation standard. And let's talk a little about the work that we have developed with these communities. And our work is related to address these challenges, to work So close with the indigenous communities and with our different stakeholders as institution, environmental authorities, and rural communities. But our main work have been focused in indigenous, and in this webinar, I will focus talk around the work that we have been done with the indigenous. TNC has defined with the communities focus in five big strategies. First one, strengthening and articulating traditional and innovative conservation strategies to ensure the protection and maintain the biological and the opportunities that the territory offers. Support governance structures that ensure effective participation in decision-making processes, develop and implement governance and policy instruments with an IPLC approach, promote sustainable economies and long-term financing mechanisms that support community-led conservation, and community-led science and knowledge based on principle of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Part of this strategy, as part of this strategy related with community-led science and knowledge sharing, we can talk about monitoring, evaluation, and learning processes. This is a very important step because it's related with the adaptive, with the cycle way in the conservation, in that conservation standards and other methodology that we use works. They have the opportunity to define not by TNC, but the communities, the indicators that for they are important. Indicators related with not only with management, but with impact, and not only with the implementation, with the specific actions, but with the projects that we are working with, and have the opportunity to follow up, to evaluate these indicators, to have feedback and develop some adjustment to produce a learning is a very important part of the process. And for the communities and for this part of the process, monitoring the progress on the objectives allows the follow-up to see if our strategies are working as expected, or while evaluation helps us to understand the impacts of our work and allows us to learn how we can improve them. But it's important to focus that the indicators, most of the indicators are defined by the communities, because our interest is not only for specific projects, as we are going to mention, is processes, and processes that can remain independent if the project or the process continue or if TNC continue in the territories. Okay, our experience with conservation standards, from our experience, articulated the conservation standards with another methodologies. For example, methodologies not only from TNC as BCA, CBD, sorry, and durable freshwater protection, but with methodologies from the communities, the way and in that they evaluate or include the people of the community in the work is one of the most important experience. Sorry, the flexibility of this methodology. This flexibility, well, this no, vale, no. Thank you. Promote with these conservation standards and with this articulating this methodology, we can promote exchange of knowledge, and develop short, medium, and long-term actions leading with tangible results. The flexibility of the conservation strategies allow us to view conservation as a cycle, one that recognizes past experiences, integrates learning, and adapt as needed. This reflects how nature works and acknowledges the communities as an integral part of these ecosystems and territories. Okay, in our work, the co-creation with the communities has been fundamental. We operate on community timeframes, respecting their way of related to nation or their territories. For them, for example, the territories go beyond physical boundaries. Some definitions or some thing that sometimes is different to understand for us. They see them as a holistic unit where water depends on the land and land depends on water. TNC role is to accompany the communities, recognizing them as a partners rather than beneficiaries. And most of the time for us in Colombia, the indigenous organization act as implementing partners. And in this way, we can respect and recognize the uniqueness of each community. This also includes focusing in two-way capacity building. It's not only TNC giving workshops, no, it's a two-way process, valuing traditional and cultural knowledge alongside Western science, and avoiding actions that may deepen existing social or economic inequalities. Another very important lessons that I want to mention is that related with our experience, we have to move from projects to processes, and the conservation standard and these methodologies allow this through the cycle and adaptive process. It's so important to use the language of each community, local translator, to ensure understanding and communicating effective with communities require the use their own language. Include always the gender and the intergenerational focus, ensure that our work integrates different peoples from the communities, women, elder, young, and is so important because each one have an important role and specific knowledge that contributes and ensure the successful of the processes. And the traditional and cultural knowledge, that this is a very important message for the communities whom we are working. Is very important to recognize this traditional knowledge and articulate in each activity that we, and each part of the process that we developed. Ultimately, the aim is to co-create solutions that reflect the reality of these communities through different strategies, not only work with them in update management plans or implements management plans or develop some policy, but every activity that we develop can reflect their perspectives, their aspiration, and the interest for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. So we can go right now with Gabriela. Thank you for your experience.
Thank you for inviting us to participate in this webinar and share TNC Ecuador's experience in applying conservation standards in a freshwater conservation initiative that is implemented in the Napo River Basin. So this initiative is implemented by TNC Ecuador and is located in the Ecuadorian Amazon region, home to remarkable biodiversity covered by 84% of forests and natural vegetation. 56% of this territory belongs to indigenous nations and communities. Currently, the Ecuadorian Amazon region is facing some threats, such as oil, mining, deforestation, and loss of biodiversity. Next, please. So in 2020, TNC select the Napo Basin to implement this community-based conservation initiative focused on freshwater ecosystems. The project aims to support and strengthen community governance to sustainable manage their territories through tools for freshwater conservation and natural resources planning, development of sustainable economic opportunities that reduce pressure and increase IPLC participation in decision-making processes that are affecting them and their natural resources. So our vision is that ancestral residents and local communities secure their material resources, spiritual and cultural necessities, while playing a vital role in keeping the region's free-flowing rivers and their freshwater ecosystems healthy for present generations and those to come. Lively rivers start their journey in the Andes, connecting sacred places, lakes, lagoons, wetlands, forests, and human communities. On their way to the Amazon, these free-flowing rivers bring vital water and nourishment to people and some of the world's most unique birds, mammals, freshwater fish, and plants. Next, please. To select the communities, TNC prepare an ecological assessment enhancing the importance of protect a key tributary of the Napo River for maintaining freshwater biodiversity. 2 communities were selected to be part of this initiative regarding the importance of key ecological and cultural attributes. Rucuyacta Quichua territory is located on the foothills of the Amazon in the subwatersheds of the Ojin and Hondachi rivers that drain to the Napo River. It covers more than 41,000 hectares. In this territory, there are approximately 7,000 people distributed across 17 communities. Rivers in this territory have been historically important for subsistence fishing. These communities depend on agriculture and ranching for their livelihoods. They produce some products like banana, cocoa, naranjilla for subsistence livelihoods and for selling at the market, at local markets specific. Key threats include deforestation, pollution, and overfishing, and they have organizational structures that are respected by the community as well as by local and national governmental institutions. And the Cofán Sinangoe community is located near to the Aguarico River that is other tributary to the Napo River. This community owns a territory of 63,000 hectares within the Cayambe-Coca National Park in the foothills of the Andes. Sinangoe has approximately 2,050 people. The Cofán people depend on fisheries, hunting, and subsistence agriculture, and the main threats are illegal activities such as mining, fishing, and hunting by people outside of their community. The decision-making and governance model of the community is guided by elders. Next, please. So to implement the planning process with these communities, Cristina Lash was our coach. She prepared material and trained Ecuador TNC staff using the Healthy Country Planning Open Standards, which is a methodology used in participative and cross-cultural context. In a simple way, the methodology allows us in the planning process to define the vision, scope, targets, threats, the situation analysis, goals, strategies, and allow us to support the communities to build a work plan. In this project, we are applying a combination of approaches. To define the strategies, we apply the Voice, Choice, and Action framework established by TNC to have a complete conservation approach, understanding that the health of the natural world and the well-being of people are connected. This goes beyond the concept of ecosystem services to an integrated, holistic view that incorporates the relationships in the social ecological system. So this framework includes 4 pillars. The first one is related to secure rights to the lands and water. The second one is related to governance and management capacity. The third one is effective multi-stakeholder dialogue and decision-making. And the last one is related to sustainable livelihoods opportunities. So these 4 pillars represent the components for successful community-led conservation initiatives. In addition, we use the gender guidelines designed by TNC to prepare a gender analysis and a specific action plan for each community. Next, please. So in Rucuyacta, the community planning process was held 2 years before. So they have a life plan, or Plan de Vida in Spanish, that describes the history of the community and a social, economic, and territorial diagnosis. Also, this document integrates strategies and projects that the community defined during 5 years. So we focus on incorporate freshwater conservation strategies, and we support the community to accomplish their visions and goals. We hire a Quechua consultant who conduct interviews in 17 communities to collect more information for the situation analysis. And as you remember, in 2020 and 21, the world faced the pandemic, and we had to organize virtual meetings with the community leaders and community representatives to present and revise information. We held in-person one-day planning workshop with community representatives to review information on targets, problems, and actors in order to define and prioritize strategies using participatory methodologies. Finally, TNC draft the conservation plan that was revised by Rucuyacta Government Council. And then we organized an assembly with the representatives of the 17 communities to validate and define the actions that were integrated in an agreement. Next, please. In the case of Sinangoe, the life plan was not available. So we had in-person 2-day planning workshops with community representatives to facilitate and identify targets, conservation objects, identify and prioritize problems, identify key actors, learn from past or existing projects, and define key strategies. TNC draft the conservation plan that was revised by Sinangoe directives, and then we organized an assembly with the community members to define the actions that were integrated in the agreement. So community-based conservation projects involve many strategies to integrate elements of human well-being, conservation, governance, and sustainable livelihoods, among others. These strategies include local planning, which focuses on addressing community-specific needs and priorities. Governance, which ensures transparency and accountable decision-making, participatory conservation, and water community-based monitoring system, which provides some techniques to collect data and define strategies to protect freshwater ecosystems, and sustainable livelihood strategies that promote economic opportunities through aquaculture with native species, tourism, and handicrafts made by women. We are currently we are promoting a new strategy that is focused on ensure safe water, access to safe water. So additionally, a gender action plan has built and implement to ensure that conservation efforts are equitable and inclusive, addressing the needs and contributions of women and other minority groups, such as children, young, and elder people. These strategies foster an holistic approach to protect IPLC territories. Next, please. So one critical element of our approach is the concept of pause, evaluation, and reflection. These allow us to step back, assess progress, and make necessary adjustments, ensuring the conservation process remains effective and responsive to community feedback. Adaptive planning management involves continuously adjusting strategies and actions based on new information and changing circumstances. The pause, evaluation, and reflection process provide opportunities for all the stakeholders to evaluate the progress, identify challenges, and make necessary adjustments. This iterative approach ensures that community planning promotes continuous improvement and learning. By incorporating these considerations, communities can better face complexities and achieve their planning goals. Next, please. TNC Ecuador has signed a memorandum of understanding or agreement, cooperation agreements with communities in order to implement the strategies that were planned in the initial phase of the project. Formal and legal instruments empower communities to implement directly the conservation actions. This agreement helps to foster collaboration, build trust, and enhance accountability, leading to more sustainable and effective community development initiatives. Next, please. In participatory community planning, we use many tools that has evolved during the last years. The Durable Freshwater Protection Framework focused on protect freshwater ecosystems and safeguard water resources to ensure long-term access to clean and safe water. This framework involves strategies for sustainable water management and conservation practices. On the other hand, we implement the Voice, Choice, and Action framework that empowers communities members by giving them a platform to express their needs and preferences, make informed decisions, and take collective actions. Together, these tools enhance community engagement, promote sustainable resource management, and ensure that conservation initiatives are addressing the community's needs. Next, please. We have learned a lot of these kind of planning processes, and we have replicated the procedures and methodologies with other communities in the Amazon region. These tools allow gather diverse perspectives, identify community threats and challenges, and prioritize actions in a participatory way. So by involving all the community in the planning process, it becomes more inclusive, transparent, and aligned to the community's objectives. Next, please. So we have learned several important lessons that we want to share with you, such as the importance of community inclusion cannot be minimized. Involving both men and women from the beginning of the project is crucial for its success. active participation and informed consent ensure that conservation strategies are appropriate and are sustainable. Additionally, adapting methodologies to local context is essential, as each community has its own unique dynamics and needs. We need to ensure transparency and open communication with all stakeholders, building trust and commitment, which are vital for the project long-term success. Next, please. So training community members to lead projects and initiatives is a key element for strengthening community governance and ensure project implementation. We need to recognize that Indigenous and local communities have a deep understanding and relationship with their territory and natural resources, so we need to value their traditional knowledge. Next, please. Finally, I would like to share some reflections about why it's important to apply the effective conservation standards in a community-based conservation initiatives. In Ecuador, we have learned that conservation standards provide frameworks to guide actions and strategies to be implemented involving local communities in decision-making processes. Conservation standards provide a structured approach to managing and protecting natural resources. When local communities apply these standards, they can leverage their intimate knowledge of the environment to implement more conservation strategies. Also, provide measurable criteria to evaluate the progress and impact of initiatives. The conservation standards increase participation, promote transparency and accountability, ensuring that conservation efforts are sustainable in the long term. The success of Indigenous community-based conservation projects depends on the integration of effective conservation standards that respect and incorporate Indigenous knowledge, ensure sustainable practices, and promote both ecological and cultural preservation. Conservation standards are designed to be adaptable to different contexts. This flexibility allows communities to tailor conservation practice to their specific environmental, cultural, and socioeconomic conditions. So by integrating these effective conservation standards, community-based initiatives can achieve more robust and sustainable outcomes, benefiting both the environment and the communities that depend on it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm looking forward to discussing these points further and answering any question you may have.
Wonderful.
We can continue, Caro, to finalize the webinar to the final keywords. So you can continue.
Yeah, thank you. Some of common learnings about challenge and opportunities to include and to use these methodologies we know with another, and related with our work with Indigenous communities and with Indigenous and local communities are related with the importance of joint efforts in the Amazon. This two case shows a very important example because even though they are different watersheds, efforts can be united to address general Amazon-wide conservation issues in both Colombia and Ecuador. But it's important to consider the context and local specificity. These standards help address to this particular way to see the reality for each community. It's important to consider and to recognize that each community, sometimes inside same place or same basin or in a same territory, thinks and see the territory in a different way. For that, it's important the flexibility and the capacity to adapt that offers this this methodology. This adaptation and this flexibility includes to create a common language that recognize that conservation objectives that are important, conservation, cultural, territorial targets that are important for the communities. And one of the biggest opportunity is the share knowledge, not only share our knowledge as a NGO or as experts in these issues, is recognize the knowledge of the people, have the possibility to share the experiences between communities, between countries, between every experience that we have. One of the opportunities in share our learnings with this process is about the role of women in knowledge in the process of manage and conserve the freshwater ecosystems. We are committed to continue this journey with the communities and with you. Thank you to the CCNet, to Cristina, to all the team that has supported us with this process. We hope to continue learning and growing together to protect these vital ecosystems and the cultural heritage that they include. I look forward for any question or thoughts that you have that you want to share you want to mention in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina and Gabriela, for everything that you shared. Just to close and conclude this space, I would like to highlight all the efforts that Ecuador and Colombia have been doing to replicate, diffusing, and scaling all the efforts, not just on the local scale, but also on the national and international level. So thank you so much for share with us all the experiences. I would like to highlight that this scaling was strategically achieved through using the conservation standards to allow the people also elevate the voice, choice, and action that it has on their territory, and scaling to this kind of spaces and this kind of efforts on the basin scale. Also, by empowering the communities to promoting the governance structures and facilitate the communication between communities and local communities and indigenous people. Also, connecting local to regional and national level, as you can present it already, and to articulate different processes and national policy instruments, for example, that has been mentioned also, and ensuring also the community-led initiatives to achieve that dream that we have, like the conservation, not just based by communities, also led by the communities, and also involving all the territorial actors that have been living on their territories and on the basins as relevant, and you're working on it. So thank you so much, Carolina, Gabriela, and all the assistants that have been here today. So I will open the space for the question that the audience has for Carolina and Gabriela. You can write it down, or you can open the microphone. So I have one question here, and it's in which ways have local communities contribute to the development and adaptation of the conservation standards? So Carolina and Gabriela can answer us as you want.
Okay, thank you. Gabi, can I start? Thank you. Okay, it is a fact that the vision of conservation has been transformed over the years, which has implied a change in the role of conservation organization and in the communities that inhabit the territories. where the leadership of the communities in the use and care of their territories is increasingly reinforced, with the accompanying, not the leading, of the organizations. And the leadership of the communities in the creations of tools and their articulate vision in each implementation process, as I said in my last speech, have made it possible to reflect realities, interests, real and everyday opportunities that can result in sustainable and effective actions led under the cultural and traditional vision of the communities. For example, language, time frame, traditional knowledge, vision of the territories, role of women, children, and elder, among others, are some of the contributions that the communities have done to the conservation standard and are highlighted in all the methodologies, the participatory trainings or workshops, in all the moments where we recognize the voice of the communities and include and elevate that voice, not only in the process that we implement with the communities, but in the way that we choose or develop these actions. I think that the standards become a proposal of for a work. It's like a framework, not only for the use of the community, for the use of the community, but is a tool to facilitate or to improve the communication between the communities with other external stakeholders, with the municipalities, with the institutions, with policymakers, is create a common language, not only between the community and us, but the community with another stakeholders of the territory.
Thank you, Carolina. Gabriela, would you like to add something?
Yes, to complement Carolina's powerful ideas, and regarding the time, I would like to highlight that every community is different. So we need to adapt the methodologies, procedures, and strategies according to local dynamics and context. Through these actions, we are improving project outcomes. By applying the participatory frameworks as the conservation standards and the health recovery planning methodology, we can scale up conservation efforts while maintaining their community-driven focus.
Thank you so much, Gabriela. Can continue, Frank?
No worries. I'm just checking, are there any other questions in the room for Carolina, Gabi, and Valentina? If so, there would be now the perfect time to ask those questions. No, okay. So with that, I would like to say a huge thank to Carolina and to Gabi, who have all very, very busy times ahead, and to find the time to present on their work and to share. This is so important to hear from you, and we're very, very grateful that you had a chance to share your experience, and hope many others on this webinar are excited about the use of the conservation standards in Ecuador and Colombia. If you have any questions after this webinar, please feel free to reach out to Caro and Gabi. I'm sure that they're willing to help, and to Valentina. We will, as I said at the beginning, we will post a recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel, and I can only welcome you to stay in touch. Send us an email if you want to join our email listserv to know about those opportunities. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to one of us on the coordinating committee if you have an idea for a webinar and you want to present yourself. Thank you so much, everybody.